I'd like to convene the June 18th, 2013 City Council meeting, and I'm calling this to order. City Attorney, on closed session, do we have anything to report?
There was no reportable action taken by the City Council or the Housing Authority Board.
Okay. Invocation will be led by Councilman Nick.
Thank you, Mayor Royce. It's an honor. I do not have a prepared text, and I will not be lengthy at all. It is an honor for me to do this. I am to give you a word of inspiration. It's very hard for me to do that because you folks have been my inspiration for 30-plus years. You have been my family for all this time, and I go to my grave someday being as grateful to you as I am today, as I always have been, for having been there for me when I had no one many, many years ago, and for having been that ever since. So the inspiration cannot be from me to you, it's from you to me. I wish you all, every single one of you and your loved ones, the best life has to offer today, tomorrow, to the end of time. Thank you all for listening.
Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Robinson.
If you'd rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the presentations. City Manager.
Agenda Item 5, new employee introduction for Jonathan Poole, Engineering Technician, Public Works, submitted by Director of Public Works, City Engineer.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Council. Thank you. I'd like to introduce to you Jonathan Poole, our newest addition to the Public Works Department. Jonathan comes to us from the county, where he was a permit technician. But before that, more importantly, before that, he worked here at the city as an intern in our economic development program. So Jonathan is our permit technician. He's really the front face, if you will, of Public Works. He'll deal with all the developers when they come in, pull all their plans and permits, all the encroachment permits, and keeping track of all that. Jonathan's a lifetime learner. He's got his undergraduate degree from Cal State Fullerton. He's working on his master's. He's got several certificates. He also took a class while he was here learning to skateboard at the Etnies skateboard class. So he's a lifetime learner, so please welcome Jonathan Poole. Thank you.
Mayor, could you ask him if he'd like to say something?
Would you like to address us as a council, city? And congratulations.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. Just want to say how grateful I am to be back at the City of Lake Forest. The internship program here is really a fantastic one, and I think the city should be commended for really helping younger professionals get their start in city government. A fantastic program, and all the city staff were really great mentors, and I learned a great deal from all of them.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
At this time, we'll convene to the Housing Authority, which will be your salmon color. So I'll recess the City Council and move to the salmon color. And actually, we're moving to the public comments. So at this time, members of the public may address the City Council regarding any item within the subject matter within the City Council. No action can be taken on items listed on the agenda unless otherwise authorized by law. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes per person and an overall time limit of 30 minutes in public comments portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on the agenda, is requested to complete a request to speak form available at the door. The completed form should be turned into Deborah Rose prior to the individual being heard by the city. Whenever possible, lengthy testimony should be presented to the City Council in writing, 8 copies, and only permanent or points or would be speaking orally. Additionally, a request to register written comments form is available at the agenda public review counter. Madam Clerk, do we have any public?
We've had no requests for the Housing Authority public comment.
Thank you. Public, then, item number 1.
Items number 2 through 4 are the consent calendar on the Housing Authority.
Move
Okay.
approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
And there are no discussion items. So at this time, we'll close the Housing Authority and bring back to City Council. And again, this will be the public presentation portion. And at this time, on the City Council, the members of the public may address the City Council regarding any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. No action may be taken upon items listed on the agenda unless otherwise authorized by law. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person and overall time limit of 30 minutes for the public comments portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter, whether or not it appears on the City Council agenda, is requested to complete a request to speak form available at the door, and completed forms must be submitted to the City Clerk, Deborah Rose, before the individual be heard by the City Council. Whenever possible, lengthy testimony should be presented to the City Council in written form, 8 copies, and additionally, a request to speak form shall be available and asked for and turned in to the Madam Clerk. Do we have any speakers?
Marcia Rudolph, followed by David Carter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is kind of a reluctant duty, but I kind of tasked myself with doing it. Every day, from sun up to sundown and beyond, our first responders, our officers, and our fire guys hit the streets and take care of us. And sometimes we don't realize how dangerous it possibly could be. Today I want to bring back to your attention 2 officers, motor officers, who were killed in the line of duty to our citizens in Lake Forest. Many of you may remember Brad Riches, who was killed over by the 7-Eleven, and the other one is Steve Parsons, who served mostly Laguna Hills, but was serving us as well. So I'd like to make sure that we keep them in our prayers and our thoughts. It's been 14 years since Brad Riches was slaughtered, and 12 years since Steve Parsons died. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Carter.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. My name's David Carter. I'm a 27-year resident of Lake Forest. And with me is Pam Estes. She's the Executive Director for Laguna Beach Boys and Girls Club. And about 4 months ago, I let you know we were in process of bringing the Boys and Girls Club into this community. And I wanted to give you an update on where we're at with that. In March and April, thanks to Pam, we ran a clinic 2 days a week over the lunch hour at Hollywood Elementary. Had 80 kids sign up for that program. They asked us to come back in May and June to do a basketball clinic. Same thing, 2 days a week over the lunch hour. We had 80 kids participate. The principal and staff at the school has asked us to do a program this summer at Olivewood. The Kiwanis Club has decided to fund that activity, no charge to the community. We'll be doing a 9-week, 2-day-a-week Boys and Girls Club activity there at Hollywood Elementary. And the thing that is really exciting about it, that they liked the activity that Pam and her group has brought to that site, that they've asked us to come back next year, once again, for the full year, 2 days a week over the lunch hour. So we'll be planning those. I've got some literature. We've been busy. We've got a fundraising event coming up on August 17th. We'll all receive invite to that. In the interim, I'd like to, if I could, bring forward some of the brochures that we've submitted out for, our grant proposals and things of that nature. None to the city at this point. But this has been a collective effort of several individuals, not only in Kiwanis, but we've even got them in Laguna and Nagao, et cetera, that decided to come and help us put this together. So we'll give you an update as time permits.
Thank you very much for your effort.
Dave, it's about time. I've been waiting.
Any further?
We've had no further requests.
Well, then that brings us to the consent calendar, Warrant Registry. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one vote. There are no separation discussion on these items unless otherwise a member of the City Council, the public, or staff specifically removes the item from the consent calendar for separation. Madam Clerk, has there anybody from the
We've had no requests from the public.
council?
If I may, Mayor Voights, I would like to recuse myself on number 16.
Number 16.
I can abstain, I guess.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could just tell
Yes.
Councilmember Nick, his property is within 500 feet of the property being resurfaced.
Okay, duly
so
noted.
he doesn't need to leave. It's uncontested if it's on the consent calendar, but as he said, he's going to abstain.
Okay. May I take a separate motion? Okay. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Now comes 60.
Okay. Now it comes to the consent calendar.
Sorry, jumped, I guess.
All matters listed, is that correct, City Attorney? Okay. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be acted by one vote. There will be no separation of discussion of these items unless a member of the City Council, the public, or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separation of this action. Madam Clerk, anybody from the public?
Yes, we've had requests for item 12 and item 13.
I accept the motion for the,
So moved.
all in favor?
Aye.
Agenda item 12, award of information technology support services contract submitted by Deputy City Manager, Director of Management Services, and removed from the consent calendar by members of the public.
See,
Mr. Members of the Council, this is an item related to the city's information technology services. The staff had not planned a presentation on this matter. Our recommendation would be to hear from members of the public. We'll take copious notes and we'd be glad to respond to any questions that the council might have. Clearly, this is an important area for the city. We've spent considerable amount of time in evaluating these proposals. And the staff's recommendation, as identified in the report, it remains as it had been when we produced the agenda. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we'd be glad to respond to any questions now or after you open it up.
public. Okay. How many do we have for public, and are they item specific?
We have 8 speakers.
8 speakers. Okay. Prudent to our rules is 8 minutes per. 3 minutes per. Okay. So we're within our time limit there. Okay. Okay. So the first speaker.
Tim Britt, followed by Eric Cordenese.
Are they with company? You may come forward.
Mayor, and honorable council members, we submitted speaker cards for 5 members. We would like to request that we consolidate that time to one one speaking time, if that's...
So 5, would say 12 minutes be adequate?
That would be adequate.
That would be a fair trade. Thank you.
Okay. Traded to be down. All right. I would just like to introduce the topic and then introduce my partner, Eric Cordenese, too, who's been working with the city over the past 5 years. First of all, just to provide a little history, I'm the CEO of Synoptic and one of the original founders. We've been serving the city of Lake Forest for 5 years now, along with over 50% of the cities in the county of in Orange County. We provide some sort of services of some type or another related to IT and their systems. Today we provide complete outsourced IT management and leadership for over 5 of those cities, and are their complete source of IT management, support, administration, and planning. So we've first of all appreciated your business over the last 5 years and have enjoyed working with the great civil city of Lake Forest, and have found working with staff to be fair and appreciative. And the second thing is, we are opposing the staff recommendation, not in any way out of disrespect for the staff. We, through our own experience with the city of Lake Forest over the past 5 years, have found them to be act at all times on behalf of the city and the citizens, and to act with great integrity, and to do all of their efforts to make the best choice for your citizens. And I think the same cannot be said for a lot of other cities in our country, but I think for Lake Forest, we appreciate that quality and have enjoyed working with them through this time. So with that, I'd just like to summarize what we'd like to talk to you about today. Really, what we're here to talk to you about is what we believe is an apples to orange business comparison. The scope of our proposal was significantly different than the scope of the competitive proposal. As a result, because we included 42% more capacity, 100 hours a month, over 1,200 hours annually of project management hours that were not included in our competitors' bid, we've overpriced the product relative to the competitive bid. And if you're choosing purely on a price basis, our offering, our proposal is truly a higher price. But what we want to point out is we literally included a tremendous amount more of services. And in order to fairly compare the proposals, we believe the additional 100 hours a month of project management services, a total of 1,300 hours a year, to address the 2,600 planned project management hours in the current IT plan, should either be removed or the competitors should have to address and price that 2,600 hours of project management. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're here to present and discuss. Just to talk a little bit more about that, on the current project plan for 2013 to 2014, it's a 4-page plan that includes over 2,600 hours of project management, CIO services, and engineering services to execute those projects. And a great portion of that we've included in our proposal, and it can't possibly have been included in the competing proposal. The final thing I want to highly emphasize is, through the past 5 to 10 years, about 10 years ago, we made a strategic decision that we felt we had a lot of private sector experience in professional IT management that we could bring to the cities and county government in Orange County. And we had a variety of resources, and we felt we had a good offering. We were fortunate enough to win several city contracts with that value proposition to help them improve and enhance their IT over the course of our services. In doing that, we learned a lot about cities. And we learned a lot that there's some big differences about cities. Cities are complex. They have a wide array of systems relative to a comparable private sector organization of a similar size. And the first couple of contracts we won, we learned about that. And we were able to leverage those learnings over the next 20 contracts that we've won with cities throughout Orange County. And we want to strongly emphasize that knowledge is shared amongst our cities. Today we're sponsors of the MMASCC, the ACC OC, OC LEDA. We developed an application that allows cities to share ordinances amongst themselves so that they're not reinventing the wheel. We conduct seminars where we invite our cities to participate, all in the hope of really raising the value for all of our city clients and other cities we may not serve today. So with that, what I'd like to do is introduce Eric Cordenese, who's been your acting CTO for the last 5 years, and let him speak to some specifics about the city of Lake Forest. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, and staff, thank you very much. By my time estimates, I might have about 5 minutes left, so I'll try to make this as 6. I got 6. Okay, I'll make this as brief as possible and try to get to the point. We've handed out some slides for you, or some papers, and I'd like to point out a couple of the different slides to make this brief. On slide number 3, we point out a couple different comparisons, specifically the fact that staff actually has rated Synoptic above SigmaNet and our current competitor. I think that's an important key point to recognize, because that purely means that based on their recommendation, the reason they went with the competitor was because of cost in our minds. If you truly look at cost, as my partner mentioned, we do provide more hours and more services in there. I take full blame on this. In the past 5 years and experience with the city, being completely enveloped in everything they do on a daily basis and the projects, really truly believed that was a need, and having conversations with staff on the proposals, what was necessary, how many project hours were necessary, it never keyed into the fact that they wouldn't need or didn't think they needed a project manager on site to run many of the projects, change management and processes and business systems that we implement here. So we included that because that's what we've had. That was my mistake. But I believe if you remove that additional effort, it makes a huge comparison, because at that point in time, when we normalize the price, we're actually a couple $1,000s less than the competitor and still ranked higher. So I think that's key to recognize. Additionally, our customer satisfaction rate from a service level perspective in delivering that has been 98%. That's actual, compared to the SigmaNet's proposal at 85% proposed. We simply propose and do more, actually, than what we see in our competitor's bid. A couple components to that. If we wanted to go to, again, some of the different slides, slide 5 points out that the number of hours that are currently in historic plans and fiscal plans, as well as moving forward, we recognize that there's a number of hours that we don't believe our competitor has in their scope of work. Should they need to implement or act on those efforts, would actually increase the cost of IT compared to Synoptic's proposal, which we think is considerably more. Going with Synoptic could save approximately $68,000 in that case. So again, an apples-to-apples comparison on slide 6, normalizing that 412 hours in our proposal as opposed to the 512 or 520 that were originally estimated. To summarize on a few other items, Synoptic truly believes that we have the automated processes. One of our drawbacks is we deliver, and our contracts deliver at any cost, because we fix our bids for many of our solutions. The project hours and project management are things that we bill separately and hourly for, but we still try to give the city a fixed amount. But in doing so, we have delivered more in many cases. Always what the city's asked for, but delivered more and more. Recently talked to them about reducing that and automating a lot of those reports that we deliver to some of the other cities. We have a broad and deep team with GIS expertise. Again, Tim mentioned our partnerships with the different community organizations, city, municipal organizations, and we do that to share ideas and to get information so that we can transfer those across cities. We have not seen that capability or experience in our competitors' model. On slide 9, again, for your review, you can see many of the cities that we and organizations that we support, but also I want to point out the fact that we serve large private sector companies as well. Disney, Allergan, large enterprises where we take that experience and we bring that to the cities. It's always been a core focus for us to create efficiencies within the organizations that we serve, and so we do that in many cases, taking that experience to the cities. So, to summarize again, we believe that Synoptic's proposal was actually realistic, but we understand that if the staff does not believe that those project hours are necessary, we can work with staff to normalize our project implementation, which actually drops our price by about $10,000. We believe that those are key efforts, but again, are willing to work with staff to reduce those hours. Synoptic has historically demonstrated a high quality, lower hourly rate, and we have more capacity and experience than our competitors. So again, just to finalize this, we hope moving forward on slide number 11 that staff would and the council would look that Synoptic can provide the best price, but we do want to make sure that you're ensuring the right contract and the right scope for the right amount of dollars. But we also don't want to compromise quality. So we would recommend two options from this. Number one, make sure that we're confirming apples-to-apples comparison, and specifically around those project management hours. We would like to be able to revise our price. We'd also understand that maybe the competitor, SigmaNet, would need to go back and look at those hours as well and make sure that they didn't miss something in the proposal. Or second, that they would reissue the RFP potentially to qualified competitors so that additional competitors can see the proposal. Again, we have seen companies like Client First, ACS, and SysPro that are out there. Unfortunately, we have not heard of SigmaNet in our industry or in the organizations that we work with. It was also a concern of ours. Thank you for your time. Appreciate all of your questions.
I'd like to ask. Okay. Open up to the council. Public speaking?
We have additional speakers.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Edge, followed by Mike Mugnia.
Now again, Madam Clerk, are these all from the...
There are 3 additional speakers. I believe they are all from SigmaNet.
Okay. How many do they have?
3 speakers.
That'd be fine. Okay, not 9.
As short as possible. So,
okay, 1 minute. We give you 8 minutes instead of 9.
Okay, that's a deal.
That's what the consensus was. Okay, all right. We're 12 and 12.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the City Council and the staff. Thank you for allowing SigmaNet to come and speak here.
Thank you.
I wanted to address a couple of things that obviously Tim and Eric spoke about. So a couple of things, the history of SigmaNet. We've been in business for 27 years. Even through the depths of the recession, we've been a profitable company. One of the things that keeps us leveraged in a competitive advantage here is the fact that we don't have any debt. We don't owe anybody anything, that we basically are 100% self-capitalized, and we then take that pricing and that methodology out to our customers. Such as Synoptic, we have very large customers, Avery Dennison, DreamWorks, and we take the private sector all the way into the public sector, City of Rancho, City of Hesperia, City of Corona, City of San Diego. So we also have similar business models, right? And you'll see that whether it's Synoptic, whether it's SigmaNet, we all sort of are in the same business and then in the same things that we do every day. What I'd like to address is ultimately the due process that we went through, and the staff that went through all this was extremely due diligent. And many times we were asked to come back for a second time and a third time to go through our overall proposal to ensure that our pricing, which I call fiscal responsibility on behalf of the city, was in line with the proposal that they set forth. So I want to address a couple of things that got brought up, and then also some of the things that were in the RFP response. The city set forth and asked for a proposal to provide IT services to the city of Lake Forest. They did not ask for a man-hours or a staffing model where you put this person's going to do 100 hours a month, this individual is going to do 20 hours a month. They asked for an IT services proposal. And so that's what we applied. And after going through our cost model and the experience that we leveraged from other city governments of your size and other companies that we do from an IT perspective, we came up with our cost model and then obviously put the profit margins that we all try to make in business today, and came up with the bid of $24,650. We were asked to come back 3 times. We never have changed our pricing up or down, and we kept it very consistent. One of the things that we believe that after meeting with the city and going through the overall RFP process is that project management is, even though Eric and Tim talked about it as being sort of a big thing here in terms of hours, in reality, the business model that SigmaNet proposed was really taking the middleman out of the equation and putting people here that can actually physically do things. So we basically took our model, and our model is that we have techs and engineers that are proposed to actually be on site that can work direct with end users. So the city has several application issues. And so if you look at from an IT services perspective, the things that you're trying to accomplish anytime you go into from an IT perspective is optimization, efficiencies, repairing deficiencies, and ultimately your ticket count. If you started with the Synoptech 5 years ago and you had 500 tickets and you didn't double your staff, then that should be reduced in half. Because overall, there is the optimization aspect of IT. Then there's also taking IT and the city to the next step and the next evolution. I mean, nobody walks around anymore with a Nokia ringtone. They walk around with a BlackBerry. They walk around with an iPhone. But it's apps. It's data and information at the palm of our fingers now, right? So when we proposed this, we came in with a different model. And the way that SigmaNet's business practices, we manage projects from a need, and we take care of the operational aspects on a day-to-day perspective, and we surround this with a whole program that then allows us to optimize our costs, keep the deficiencies out away from the city, and allow you to do the business, which is taking care of your citizens. And so from SigmaNet's perspective here, we believe we've costed this right. We've offered the city over $800,000 in savings over the next 3 years, which isn't a small amount of money. It takes a lot of money to operate a city nowadays. I think all of us learned that in many aspects, many cities, state, federal governments, when we all went through the recession, that it's more important now to be more fiscal responsible than we were, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So, and so I think that SigmaNet has given a fair proposal. We've gone through the same due diligence that Synoptech was asked to go through, and we did not change our pricing, nor would we stand up here and say, because we have 100 additional hours of project management when we do that. We've offered you a fixed bid on a monthly basis, and we'll stick to that fixed bid because you asked for an IT service proposal. You did not ask for man hours, whether that be project management. So, and I believe Synoptech in the overall process also was allowed to come back 3 different times and either raise or lower their prices and revisit the project management and all of the aspects of what was in the original proposal. So we at SigmaNet believe in the value of IT as we apply that to our customers, whether that's in the public sector, whether that's in the private sector. We believe that we have a very comprehensive solution that we put together for the city, and we believe that over time we can save money. One of the things that I didn't hear Tim or Eric talk about, which I thought was pretty compelling, and it's not in the practice at SigmaNet, which is they charge you 5% for a product that they're already making margin on. So ultimately, if you select SigmaNet, whether you look at the fixed fee on a monthly basis or you look at the, I've already cut your price by 5% because I'm not going to charge you a 5% fee to order something on your behalf. That's already built in the overall margins and cost of goods. The other aspect of it is, Erica talked about being the CTO, which basically is the terminology of a Chief Technology Officer. The big thing that we also propose, and some of our hours are a little less than Synoptic because we believe the optimization and using technology to take the city to the next level. Case in point today, we have fire and police here, but if there's a disaster, you guys are backing up your city data on a tape. Okay, if you can't get the tape and you can't transport it in and you can't get it to somewhere, it's no good. So a lot of the proposals that we have and how we've articulated this is also to take the city to the next level in terms of leveraging cloud services. Some of you might have a Facebook account or an Amazon account. It's a cloud service. So taking it out, your storage, putting in a cloud service, lowering the cost of tape backups, and being able to do that. So we looked at the whole proposal. We responded to the proposal. And then we looked at where can we take the city and its IT organization and take it to the next level and be able to be fiscal responsible, be able to leverage the new technology, and really enable you for the future. Because ultimately, information is at our hands, and we're in sort of a transition, all of us are, in terms of where every business, whether it's private, whether it's public, whether it's federal, state, local, leverages IT. And so we believe we put a really good proposal together around that. We also believe that our tools, our processes, and our big business practices in SigmaNet are superior to Synoptech. One of the things that I want to point out from a SigmaNet perspective, we have 250 employees completely local to Southern California, whereas Synoptech has about 20 to 30 folks local, and the majority of their staff is in the state of Idaho. So we also are a big believer of keeping all of our techs, our engineers, our service desks, everything in a local presence. So one of the things that if the city wanted to come out and look at our operations, our main operations is in Ontario, California. We also have operations in Irvine and in San Diego. So we're an hour to an hour and a half away from pretty much this facility, and everything is completely local. So with that said, I want to close with this comment that I believe the value of the proposal that SigmaNet has set forth saves the city a significant amount of money over the next 3 years. It is a proposal that allows you to optimize your services from an information technology. It is not a contract based on hours. It's a contract based on the services that you've requested. And we will actually keep that value. We're not charging any 5% purchasing uplift. So we're already saving money just by cutting that out. So from a fiscal responsibility, from a value, from an execution, we believe the city's recommendation to go with SigmaNet is the right decision, and we greatly appreciate you allowing us to come speak this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody further?
We've had no further requests.
All right, bring it back to council.
Sure. I have a few questions, but first I just want to say how much I appreciate living in a contract city. There are a lot of cities where they don't have this opportunity to competitively bid. They don't have this opportunity to potentially lower their costs, and we do. So really appreciate that, and I think all the residents should. There's been some discussion about this whole project management side, so I just wanted to understand how that fit into the RFP, if at all, and then if there were some specific projects that seem to fit into the RFP or don't and would be separately bid, and kind of how that all worked. And I have a few follow-ups, but I'll let you respond.
Certainly. Mayor and members of the council. Project management is one aspect of this contract. Now, when we went out for the competitive proposal process, this scope of services was designed really to support the city's baseline IT program. So we weren't looking for this contract to give us anything new, any new initiatives, any functionality that we didn't already have. It was simply to maintain what we already have, keep up with all of the patches, all of the routine upgrades that you have for your existing software and hardware. So there is some project management that is required to have that contract, but we specified in the scope of services that projects that are within contract are those that are 16 hours and under. Anything over 16 hours is going to be considered out of contract unless we mutually agree that it can be handled. And so our big push next year is going to be the upgrade of EnerGov. And as you'll see, and as you saw during the budget workshop, we have a separate line item and a separate budget for project management for EnerGov. And so we've made the conscious decision that for big new projects, we would separately budget those, and we would separately do competitive proposal processes and hire separately. That wouldn't be part of the baseline contract. Now, one of the items that Mr. Britt brought up and Mr. Courtney's referred to was our annual fiscal plan. The way we manage our IT program is every year we sit down with our vendor, Synoptech, who we have high regard for. We consider them a good vendor. And we talk about what projects are going to be done in the upcoming year. And we list everything out and we match it to the kind of the hours that are in the contract, but we both know this is a fixed contract. So the price is what the price is. And in the past, we've had a lot of project management hours. The last time we went out for our contract, we knew we were going to implement 3 big systems. We knew we were going to implement a permitting system, which is EnerGov. We knew we were going to implement an agenda system, which is SIRE. And we also thought we were going to be implementing a new accounting system. We haven't done that. So when we went out, we asked for a full-time project manager because we wanted that continuity. Well, in this contract, it's a little different. We know we're not going to be doing multiple new initiatives, but when we are, we want to separately contract that out. So the document that Mr. Britt was referring to was a draft document. I have not reviewed that fiscal plan for next year because, quite frankly, we don't know who our vendor is at this point. But when we do select a vendor, we will sit down and we will figure out what's going to be in that fiscal plan. And that will most likely have a big reduction in project management hours.
So I heard from both parties that there were multiple meetings. In your opinion, was it clear that you were going to be discussing those projects later on? Anything 16 hours plus would be, a separate RFP or?
It is in the scope of services that anything 16 hours or under are outside of the scope. The only exception to that is our annual desktop refresh, where we change out 25% of our computers. That does take longer than 16 hours, and we were specific that that is within the contract. So.
All right. And my last question is, I understand with the sports park being built and the recreation center that will come with it, that there's the likelihood that recreation staff will move from City Hall to the sports park. Is that included anywhere in this, or would that be a separate project as well?
We've specified in the attached agreement, which is attached to your materials, that we can grow up to 20% before we would open up the contract to negotiate price.
Okay.
So, for instance, right now we have about 110 workstations, so we could go up, accordingly. And we think that will be sufficient for it to handle that sports park.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilman Herzog?
Yeah, just to kind of follow, this whole 16-hour break point, I mean, is that something we had in our prior contract, this sort of 16-hour?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, so that's something new. So then in the prior contract that we're currently under, because that contract's at about 380, which is about where they're
Yes.
bidding. That would include projects that are over 16 hours?
Yes.
Okay. And then just this year, I mean, how many projects ended up coming in over 16 hours versus under? That might be too general. Or
That's a very general question.
looking in the future, is kind of breakdown as to what that looks like?
Well, we think our major project is really going to be that EnerGov update. And so for that, we budgeted for a full-time project manager for 6 months, because that's going to be a huge project. And that's going to take up a lot of our resources, so we don't anticipate any major upgrades aside from that, because I, quite frankly, don't think we have the staff capacity to be able to manage all of that.
Okay. And then in those, whatever projects come in at over 16 hours, those will be open bids, and would that include whoever currently has the IT contract, or would they be precluded from bidding on these over 16?
They would not be precluded, but we would have a separate process.
And that would be open to anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't have anything else.
I'm still learning. Trust me. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I only have a little something. Number one, fortunately, I have a grandson that's in IT, and he's one of the bosses there, and so I can pick his brain for information because it's not my expertise. So when it's not my expertise on a subject we have, that means I have to dig further, and I have to check with people and ask a lot of things and make sure that it's people that I can trust to tell me without taking sides and things. And my grandson's like that. That grandson happened to be one of my favorite. He gives me a lot of info when I need it. I see that yet though there are differences in cost factor over the long term of the contract, it does come out to a larger figure, even though the short term it's not that far apart in some areas, not all. Because there's a big gap, like here in your hours, and as I know you're not doing hours on hours, and same day resolved and 3 days resolved. And I'm going down the list. I went down the list of the handout, but I also, for me, I'm real secure with what my staff has given me. Even though I'm not discounting what's here, because I'm quite sure staff would let me know if it wasn't an accurate apples and oranges or oranges and oranges. I do have a few little concerns of things that haven't been answered for me, and I'd like to wait until Nick gets through writing over here, because after listening to both, I have some more things that I'm not comfortable with or sure of. And I haven't found out how to address them yet. I may have to ask for you to come back to me, because I like to be as accurate as I can on my vote, and I can't possibly do that right now. I need to hear some more input from any side. Nick, are you about through?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay. I'm going to...
Great, thank you.
Mayor?
Can I go ahead?
Councilman Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. I really need more information before I can make an intelligent decision. Why did Synoptic have to come back more than once? I still don't know that. Can I beg of you to?
Sure. In our purchasing guidelines, the way this works, for the benefit of the audience who may not be familiar with our purchasing guidelines, we have a panel of employees that evaluate the written proposals. And once the written proposal is scored, if you get 70 points or higher, you make it to the interview round. So our panel sat for the first interviews, and we asked questions about resource allocation, about things in the written proposal, what if questions, that kind of things, to kind of get a feel from both vendors. After the first interview, the panel sat down and felt like they didn't have enough information really to be able to finalize their scores. IT, it covers a broad number of services, so they wanted to know more. So we invited each back for a second interview, and the second interview really centered on the resource allocation. We sent both firms questions in advance so they knew what to prepare for, and we talked about each of the line items. How did you base your estimate on your help desk? How would you handle help desk tickets? What did you base your account management estimate on, and so forth. And so that really clarified for us kind of the differences in their approaches to this contract. After that, we met as a panel, and the panel still felt that they needed more information specifically on application support. So how the vendor would support our specific programs that they may not be in every other job that they have. The difference between supporting Microsoft Word, which is pretty common, versus the software that's specific to our city, like Sire, our agenda software, and so forth. So that last interview really focused on that. At the end of that, we reconvened the panel, discussed, and then everyone went off to score, and that's how we ended up with those scores.
Great, thank you. But what well, let me ask you this way, if I may. the request for proposal that we put together, that you put together, one company came back with 32,000 and change, one company came back with considerably less. And then the 32,000 and change changed to 22,000 and change. Specifically in respect to your request for proposal, which one was the correct contract to be? In other words, I have a hard time imagining a company. I'm trying to understand this. I have a hard time imagining a company answers the same RFP, one time comes with 32,000 and change, and one time almost 1/3 of that goes away. What am I missing here? What am I missing?
Well, I think in this case you have two companies that came at it with different service models.
Okay, so my question is, which service model, thank you for saying that, in fact, you just articulated my thought, which service model was mirroring or did mirror your RFP?
Well, our RFP describes what we expect to happen. It doesn't describe how we expect them to produce that effect. So in the scope of services, it's a service level agreement. So we lay out what the service level expectations are. For instance, if someone opens a help desk ticket, it's to be completely resolved within 3 days for 85% of the tickets opened in a given month, for example. Now, how many people or resources it takes each company to do that is up to each company and their business model.
I see.
This is, the point both vendors made was that this is a fixed cost contract. So each of them looked at their own business model and proposed what they thought they could, they proposed a price that they thought would be profitable for them and would allow them to meet the service level agreement. Each vendor is very clear that there are no comebacks. There are no, oh, we underpriced it, we need to ask for more money. None of that gets to happen here. And so, because it is fixed cost, the incentive is really on the vendor to optimize your operations so they're not spending all of that time that they proposed. In our experience, in some months, you have unexpected outages, and Synoptech is here a lot more than what their resource allocation estimated. But there are some months where you have no issues, and they may spend very little time here. But, that's kind of the fixed cost.
It's on them. Okay.
Yes, it is on them.
It is on them. No, great. I do not mean to be negative at all, but I'm not really technically oriented. So by this question, I don't mean to be negative at all as to people who produced this, and I appreciate the slides. And so I'd like to ask you, because I don't really understand it, at least at this point I truly don't. This apple to apple, orange to orange, does this portray exactly? Comment on this. How much value how much value do you put to this? Because to me, it's French.
Well, I have not seen it. I received it the same time you did, so I have not had a chance to really review it. So
Okay,
I really couldn't comment on.
All right, then would it be fair? Because I surely cannot make an intelligent question at this point, and I'm not sure if my colleagues are much further from me. Would it be fair if maybe at some point in the next 5 or 10 minutes, if not now, I make a motion that we revisit this 2 weeks from today? I am not at the point that I can intellectually render a decision, and I don't think I will be in 15 minutes. I really got to understand this. And this just came to me 4 days ago. I haven't had time to really digest it. And this actually came to me tonight, but the fact that we were going to talk about this, I became aware of it just like everybody else was. If this was accounting, if this was finance, I would feel comfortable. I would render a decision at this very moment. This is beyond me. I really need to learn.
Why don't we revisit that and let us finish council comments?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. city staff, obviously, we've got a history with Subnoptech. Are we satisfied with the quality of work and their performance here at the city?
Based on the current scope of services, we are satisfied, yes.
And that goes with our others. I mean, you guys are all involved with this because you guys all use computers. I mean, this is something that's before us all right now. And are we happy there? So, is it because maybe it's a huge, when you look at the hour difference here, man-hour wise, it's a huge. It's a huge margin of difference in their man-hour there. So was maybe because of their history with us and their maybe their involvement in our city, did they overstate their hours that maybe they were willing or needed to perform?
Well, I think they proposed based on their estimated staff hours they needed to meet the service level agreement. I think it's the best way to describe that. Now, the way our process works is we do our interviews, we evaluate the technical proposals, and then we get a score. And then your next step is to evaluate the cost proposals. And the way you evaluate the cost proposals, according to the guideline, one of the ways to do that is to compare it to the other cost proposal you received, and that's what we did. We evaluated SigmaNet's cost proposal to see if it was reasonable. And in our estimation, based on our 3 interviews, their written proposal, our reference checks, and our site visit to their facility in Ontario, we are convinced that they can meet the service level agreement based on the allocation they described in their proposal.
If you just talk, this is only project management hours. Annually, 1,920 hours compared to 624 hours annually. But and that's just in the management. And then if you go to some of the other ones, I mean, it's huge difference in man hours there. So I just wanted to clarify that. Is it because of their over personalizing, or maybe because of their involvement with us as a city?
You know, I can't speak to how they prepared their cost proposal and their resource allocation.
But you did say that some months they were here quite a bit more than even what the contract would bear out.
As a fixed cost contract, that's typical. Yes. Yeah, it fluctuates the amount of time they're here. But based on what our projects will be in the future, I believe that SigmaNet's proposal can meet the service level agreements. I think Synoptek's proposal has more hours, and that was their proposal. You would really need to ask them on how they based that. But one of the things Mr. Courtenay's mentioned in his comments was that they prepared their cost proposal, their resource allocation, based on history with the city, historical fiscal plans. Well, our fiscal plan is going to change. Our practice of using our contracted day-to-day IT contractor for big projects, we're changing that with this proposal. And we believe that came across in the way we wrote it up. But, you know, I think SigmaNet picked up on that. But also SigmaNet has a different way of delivering services. So I think that explains some of the reasons why those hours are really different.
I'm looking at my colleagues up here. It looks like 3 of them are ready to vote right now, but I believe that there's 2 of us that still have some more fact-finding to do, and I would like to ask my 3 colleagues, would they indulge us to do more fact-finding? I'm not an expert in this area. Things that I know, but anyone that has ever did any proposals at this city while I've been aboard, no, I don't like last-minute things. We don't have time to go over it. Now, I hear even my staff hasn't had time to go over it, because when we get here before this meeting starts. Sometimes we have to come in a little late. We're in that closed session taking care of business. And then hopefully we get a chance to make a potty break, in all truth. And if not, you got to wait until we make one. And then we got to rush out here. There's no time to to read or research or check with staff and get any opinions on it. The things that we get in our book, in our packet that get delivered, we are supposed to be and went over it, and I do believe all of us do due diligence and go through it, and we have an opportunity to get back to our staff, to get clarities, or even have them to get information from companies. But in this case, I don't have enough expertise in this area to not be able to get more information. My vote is very valuable to me, whether I'm making a vote for who's going to run my country, or I'm making a vote for what I'm going to spend of my taxpayer dollars, because they're mine also, of my citizens. I am not ready to take this vote. So even though the three over here appear to be very ready, and if they're not, they can correct me, I'm asking, along with Adam, that I be given the opportunity to take and do more research. And I know that I'm going to ask for that thing to come back on people can contact us, because I voted yes and I can call it back, because I don't like to be lobbied. Everybody should know that by now. And I don't want to be lobbied. I don't want anybody to sell me on it. I want to do my homework. I want staff to help me walk through this, and I want to make a conscious decision. I'm not able to do that tonight. And I would be doing either one of the companies injustice, because I'd have to abstain from voting, because I'm not going to vote for anything that I'm not comfortable with. And anyone that has seen me up here on this dais know, if I'm not comfortable, I'm not, because I have to be able to defend the vote of to my citizens of why did I spend their money, or why did I choose what, even if I'm on the no side or the yes side of it, even if I'm standing alone. And I can't do that tonight. So I'm making a request that we continue this to the next meeting, giving the two of us the opportunity to do more, since we're not experts and don't have all that information. And now something else has been put in the mix, and I haven't got a chance to get to my staff on that, or and to my grandson that he knows this stuff and can help me, or do my research on it. So that's what I'm asking.
Is that in the form of a motion then?
Yes, it is.
Is that a second?
I second that, yes, sir.
All in favor?
Just for discussion.
Okay.
Obviously this, I mean, I've made these kind of requests too over the years for additional time if there's something to investigate or you want to review further. And I'm certainly have always been one that believes that a council should honor those requests when people say they have an honest need for additional time. I'm glad you're limiting it to 2 weeks, because obviously we have another issue with the contracts ending, and I know we're serving an agreement to extend, but obviously there would have to be an extension, I think pretty clearly. So that'll come into play. And then secondly, I do want to make one thing clear. Both companies made it very clear that the staff was very solid in their due process procedure. And in a contract city, due process is critical.
Oh, yes.
And so we're at a juncture now where, although the individual specific proposals are not public record, sort of the complete overview is. And so basically now everybody knows, how many hours here and how many dollars there and all that kind of stuff. But under due process, we cannot, in my opinion, accept additional or changed models. What's in place is in place. And has been pointed out, this has been a very unique situation where each company proposed a different business model and business plan on how it services. They're both very good. So the issue is which one fits the city better, in my opinion. But I do not believe that under the due process that I think makes a contract city succeed, there can be changes of any kind to the proposal. That ends when the agenda goes out, in my opinion. And that's where I come from on that. Now, since I believe this will be continued over for 2 weeks, there are a couple of things that you can bring back too. On page 87, you outline both the technical review and the qualifications review. And if I understand correctly, the qualifications review, that was the 3 various meetings you had with each company, so they each had the 3 follow-ups. Now, obviously, this is another unique feature in this bid, because one company came out, reasonably ahead in the technical review by 43 points, and then now the one that's been cited as the preferred, came ahead under the qualifications review, and that kind of closed the gap. So I'd be very interested to hear is, okay, why was there the gap at the technical review, and why was the gap at the qualifications review? Additionally, typically we see this form as far as, a reference checks. This is the kind of thing we're typically seeing. The only one I found in this agenda item was this one. And I don't recognize this at all. I don't know if this is what came with the proposal or if we've now changed our reference check. So, because the questions are very different. And quite frankly, the stuff we usually get as far as a reference check on a company is not included in what was at page 95
Yes.
of the thing. So my other request is I would like to continue and be consistent and have a reference check like we typically do done, and that report come back as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's why I found an old one, so I'm waving it so you, because I don't know how you describe this thing. So, okay. Then with that, that's the only thing I wanted to add.
So with those friendly amendments to that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, he didn't say anything. He said it now.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you,
if we could,
colleagues.
I heard some information, I want to make sure the staff's clear of what it might or might not be doing. We received this evening, and we have not evaluated it. Based on the comments I believe I heard from Councilmember Herzog, this is coming in way after the fact. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure whether or not it's relevant for us to evaluate any further on this document. I'd like to know whether or not if that's the case, then staff would not evaluate this and give you any opinions relative to it. Our recommendation is based on what we've already provided you. And so unless you are directing us otherwise, based on what I'm hearing, we're not going to prepare an analysis of this presentation and bring it back. And if you did want to do that, I would suggest you give it also to SigmaNet and let them respond to it if you wanted to even consider that.
I'll look to Mr. Herzog for that.
As long as we gave the competitors the same opportunity to look at and just to clarify their operation that they're bringing to our city, I mean, it would be a clarification. I guess it'd be more knowledge. What does my council want this discussion?
It cannot, in my opinion, go to changing the proposals. I haven't read every page of this, but there may be some technical discussions. But as far as, well, if we change X hours here and X hours there, then the dollar amount changes here and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of the proposal. If each side wants to continue to discuss the technical aspects and why they feel their company's superior to the other and vice versa, I mean, we're going to have another open session. And I'm not one to cut off, people's ability to talk to us, since we have to do things in public. But, can't change the proposals that are in. Further examination of the technical aspects and what it means, I have no problem with it. And so there might be a little of that in here as opposed to changing the actual proposal.
Yes, due to the fact that I'm the one that made the motion, I want to make it very clear, I'm not looking for anybody to add to or take away from. I'm looking for total clarity and on some things that I do not understand. As far as adding something to it or people giving me some more, I don't want that. I just want to make sure I got a clear understanding of what I already have. So if I need some help, I will call staff and say, I don't understand this or that. What do that mean? That's what I want the opportunity to do. So you'll have to feed me some more paperwork. That's just going to mess up my brain some more. Let it stay where it's at, because I got a pretty good idea of what I need to ask to get some clarity on. But I'm not going to do it here now.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, a couple of things.
Yes.
One, on the footer of this document, it says confidential. This has been provided to the council. I would suspect that I'd refer to the city attorney, but I believe there's no confidentiality in this document, and it would be available to any member of the public who would care to look at it. Is that the case, Mr. Attorney? Just if there was an expectation, this is a public document.
Yeah, anything distributed in open session is a public record.
Okay, just to note that it says confidential on the bottom, if that's the case. As it refers to Mayor Pro Tem McCullough's position, and you're trying to ensure that you've kept a level and a playing field, if you are going to be looking at this document, do you want to give SigmaNet the opportunity to provide you another document? What I heard from Councilman McCullough is no. If you want SigmaNet to be able to provide you something in addition, since SigmaNet or Snoffic has done that, do you want to entertain that?
If they feel they need to do that, but I don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of paperwork. But if they feel they need to do that, that they're not, they don't have enough representation by the staff. I'm quite sure you've probably seen the staff report. And if you feel you want to do something, but keep it around the same pages. I do read everything, but I don't really feel I need any more because I'm not putting a lot of weight on that. My heaviest weight is on my staff report. And anything that I don't quite get, I get back to them and say, what did you mean, or what was that about? And then I will check it out because it is a subject I don't have the expertise. So I get the expertise that I from the people that I feel have expertise. It will not be your company. It will not be your company because I try and be just by everybody. So right now, you've already went through the process. For me, I don't feel I need anything from either one of you. The only information I need is from my staff. If I have something I can't quite get my head wrapped around. Now, the others, or for Nick, he can decide whatever he needs, but that's where I'm going with mine. It's not too many subjects I don't grasp real easily, but this happens to be something I don't want to be in error because I don't have any connections with either one. I don't want any connections with either one. I want to make sure I've done just by everybody. I know that you slice an apple and you squeeze an orange, and I've got to take this apple and orange and make some kind of juice out of it that is pliable to my city.
Thank you, Mayor. My goal, the only goal, is to understand everything to the best of my ability. In doing so, perhaps it will help you understand the information here on every page. Some of it is self-explanatory, some of it I really need to understand. Perhaps in doing so, I can just come to you and you can educate me one-to-one on my questions, right? I mean, it doesn't have to involve everybody else. I can just come to you and say, this doesn't make sense, and you can help educate me, right, Mrs. Rose? Or Mr. Dunick?
The staff is always available to the council to answer questions that you might have. It would certainly be prudent to ensure that all of your colleagues have the same information by which to make an informed decision.
Perfect. So
what we would give to one member of the council, we'd probably give to all.
Right. So you don't need to do anything. If I have any questions, I'll just come to you. Whose answer will go to all of us. Great. Thank you.
One more thing. Who was it? I don't know who it was. Maybe it was Peter or Dwight. Raised the issue of, it may have been Bob, whoever, raised the issue of if I wanted more information from, let me see, what's these two names? I don't know how I am on names now. Sigma. Don't forgive me if I mess up your names. I'm not good with it. If I wanted the one that didn't give us some paper tonight, okay? Since it's not, once it was submitted, it's not confidential. What I would suggest is that if somebody said if they could give us some. If they want to go through this, and if there's anything that is inconsistent with their report, if there's something that's take in, but they better give it to me real quick, because don't be giving it to me at the last minute, because I have a lot of reading to do. So if they feel, if you want to give them that and they give me something, don't try to sell me. Just correct any error if there is one. And staff, don't give it to me if it's not just correcting an error. Do you understand? I see your face.
Yes. Yeah, no,
Bob, you understand me real clear, don't you?
I always have, council member.
I know. I know. Okay, I don't want no bunch of mess. Only if there is an error, get the information and give it to me so it can be corrected, because this is a paper that I didn't get from the other
Yes,
side.
that's-
But let them have the opportunity to go through it if there is an error. If it's something that wasn't in this staff report, I do not want it, because I'm not looking to make myself have more work. I'm just looking to get the points so I can make a conscious decision that I can stand by. That's understood? Gotcha. We can move on.
City Manager, do you have that clarified?
Yes, I do, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right.
Thank you so much.
And we have the vote on the, okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Agenda item 13, agreement with the County of Orange for law enforcement services submitted by Chief of Police Services and removed from the consent calendar by members of the public.
Do we have any public to speak?
Jim Gardner, followed by Don Barnes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. Councilman Robinson, just a couple of minutes ago, or half an hour ago, talked about the advantages of competitive bidding. And we saw in the process what a great job Deborah does. I'm always impressed when they go through those, comparisons and put together the numbers, et cetera. It's terrific to have competitive bidding, and now we have a contract before us which is non-competitive. Not only that, but the guys have guns. So the other guys, they have computers. They have guns. It's a non-competitive contract. And this year they're asking for a 2% raise. That's non-negotiable, almost $250,000. And there's no John Wayne out there to come riding in and give us a competitive bid. So I realize that we're going to approve the contract tonight because basically there's no choice. But there are two things I'd like you to consider going forward. Number one is to possibly deal with the issue of the non-competitive by speaking with your sister city, Irvine. Irvine, as you know, has a new council. They have already instituted a model of sharing. Their animal services provide services for other cities. And they, as you might know, have one of the lowest crime rates in the entire country. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to open up a negotiation. Maybe it's not possible, but I think it's worth at least opening up discussions with them to see whether or not they would be prepared to do that. Second thing is, you know me, I go searching for my KPIs everywhere in all these contracts. Lo and behold, I couldn't find anything in that contract of KPI, so I went back to the budget stuff, see if it was there. I couldn't find that there. So apart from looking at Irvine as a possible source of police services in the future, I'd like you to start putting some KPIs in the contracts. Increasing the STARS people by 5%. Doing an analysis of the neighborhood watch to see whether that results in a change in frequency or severity of crime. You could anybody could sit down and come up with 10 or 12 good KPIs and then give that to the police department and say, hey guys, we'd like to see these things accomplished. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don Barnes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Like your hat, Councilmember McCullough.
Thank you.
My name is Don Barnes. I'm an assistant sheriff with the Sheriff's Department. A little bit about my nexus to this community. I've been living here for 20 years. Moved here deliberately to bring my family to this community. I was a patrol deputy in Lake Forest, was a field training officer in Lake Forest, was an investigative sergeant serving in Lake Forest, was the chief of police services in Lake Forest, the division commander for the South Operations Division, which had Lake Forest, and recently the commander of Field Operations and Investigations, which has the 5 commands encompassing the city of Lake Forest. So I always have this nexus back to the city. In my opinion, the best job I ever had was that seat over there. Yes, Pat, you can still keep it. About the contract, I just want to point out a couple things just about the relationship that the Sheriff's Department has with the city of Lake Forest. For nearly 22 years, the Sheriff's Department has been the police services provider for Lake Forest and provided those services to the city's prior to the city's incorporation December 20th, 1991, when it was then the unincorporated area of El Toro. Lake Forest and the Sheriff's Department have been through a lot together. We have survived 2 wildland fires in 1999 and 2007, civil foreign presidential candidate visit from Barack Obama and then Senator McCain, and successfully shut down numerous businesses that are operating illegally within the city, and that's as a result of a partnership that's been established over time with the City Council, serving now and prior, and the Chief of Police Services, and the relationships that he forged with the Council and the department heads. Throughout the years, Lake Forest has also had some sacrifice, as mentioned previously by former Council member Marshall Rudolph. 2 of our sheriff's deputies lost their lives in the city, and I know that the city has felt the loss as much as we have. Throughout these years, Lake Forest has experienced a steady decline in Part 1 crimes, down to its lowest point in 20 years of available data. Nationally, Lake Forest has been recognized as having some of the lowest crime rates among the cities between populations of 75,000 and 100,000, and routinely ranked in the top 10 of the approximately 400 cities that are in that ranking. Locally, Lake Forest has one of the lowest Part 1 per capita crime rates in Orange County, with nearly half of the rate of crime of non-contract cities. In fact, all the cities policed by the Sheriff's Department are below the county average for Part 1 per capita crimes in the 2000 data we had available for that analysis. What is most impressive is the per capita cost for police services of $160 per resident, significantly less than the cost to run a municipal police department. Perhaps what's most significant about that is you got a lower crime rate at a lower cost than what municipal police agencies pay. Perhaps the greatest testament to the services provided by the Sheriff's Department through the city is the 96% of residents express their satisfaction in maintaining a low crime rate. So I'm asking you to support that contract. If you indulge me, just one more point. I want the previous speaker mentioned about competitive bidding. If you give me about 15 seconds.
You may.
Going to competitive bid. Prior, just recently, there's only one other city that contracted for police services in the County of Orange, and that was the city of Yorba Linda. After 42 years with the service provider of Brea Police Department, they asked for a competitive bid. The Sheriff's Department went in with another contract city and saved that city $5 million from the previous contract with the city of Brea. What their contract would have been prior to the competitive bid, and what we ended up bidding it for our services, and now have that service contract with the city of Yorba Linda. So I'm not sure that even if you went to competitive bid, you'd find anybody who'd be able to provide the service level that you get with the outcomes that you benefit from. I say that also as a member of the community at the cost that the city pays. It's a great return on investment. I ask that you support the item, pass the contract.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Second. All
Third.
in favor?
Mr. Mayor,
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, if I could point out just, I think, a couple of items I think
Yes.
are important for the council. I know you probably remember this issue pretty particularly, but as it relates to performance measurements, in your draft budget on page 180, there are performance measurements that talk to neighborhood watch, response times, traffic enforcement indices. Those are all included within your budget. They're not in the contract because it's a standard county contract that's the same for every city that contracts with the county. So this city chose to place those in your budget. That's where they're located. I know the council probably remembers that, but for members of the public who are interested, that's where it's located. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, too. The fine job the Orange County Sheriff Department did do in apprehending a homeless man in the city of Lake Forest that actually had a home invasion robbery. You guys did a spectacular job. I actually drove through and talked to many of the neighbors, and your response time and your calming effect and just your commitment to finding that individual, that fugitive, was outstanding. So thank you so much. And my hat's off to the Orange County Sheriff Department. Thank you. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem?
One of the things that was not said was that in cities that have their own sheriff department, their own police department, they always say, well, these are our policemen. Our contract specifically have it where our officers are our officers. When in the other cities that have their own police services, when that person is out, they've got to pay a bunch of overtime. When our person is out, they put someone in that place and it's still the same amount for us. The other thing is that our sheriff, that are our police force, they get to know our streets, our people, and our people get to know them. And that means a lot. And there is nothing that we are shortcoming on our officers knowing our community. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
I didn't hear a vote. I had a motion, but I didn't hear a vote.
I think it was
Unanimous.
vote.
It was unanimous.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
That actually brings us to the public hearings. Okay. Moving right along. At this time, we'll have the public hearings are scheduled. Okay. Is there any public comments for public hearings on item?
Well, Agenda Item 17, Zoning Code Amendment 8-12-2805A, an ordinance amending Title IX of the Lake Forest Municipal Code regarding emergency shelters and transitional and supportive housing, submitted by Director of Development Services.
So this officially opens public hearing. Anybody wishing to respond, provide the clerk with a request to speak. Have we heard any request?
We've had no requests.
Okay.
Mr. Members of the Council, the staff believes that it has provided sufficient information in this item for your consideration. We respond to any questions that you might have. Fundamentally, this is an ordinance that is further clarifying an ordinance that you adopted several months ago related to the emergency shelters, and it sort of clarifies some of the conditions that were identified by our housing consultant that needed that. So staff's recommendation is to introduce the ordinance and set up for second reading at your next meeting.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You still have to give us the opportunity to make a comment. Or to ask
Mayor Pro Tem,
something.
would you like to make a comment?
To ask something, you have to give us that. The only thing is, I know that on page 217, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down to the down near the bottom where you have the bullet points, the fifth bullet point where it says 300 feet apart. And it says not required to be more than 300 feet apart. Who's doing this? Okay, Gail, it's your turn. Come on.
I'm going to defer to Ms. Ackerman, who proposed.
Certainly, Mayor and members of the council. On page 217 of the report, we are listing the things that HCD, that SB2 specifically says you can address. And so on page 222 of our SB2 ordinance, I think it says it a little bit more clearly on section 2, E1. It says no more than one shelter shall be permitted within a radius of 300 feet from another shelter. So we are specifically allowed, HCD has allowed us to, or the legislation allows us to set that limit, and we've done that in accordance.
I thought originally that we were trying for 500. I guess that was really pushing them, huh?
No, I'm sorry. The way the law is written, it doesn't allow cities to go beyond that. So it's telling you these are your limits, and you can have regulations just very narrowly. You can't broaden them. That would really make it more difficult to locate emergency shelters by burdening them with more significant use requirements or changing those spacing requirements.
I know they're being very tight, but once again, they're taking away a lot of local control to prevent high saturation. In the effort to create, they are taking and deteriorating our ability to control the oversaturation, and that's something that I have a little issue with, although I am for doing it. And also, who came up with the portion on the time for the emergency shelter? What time checking in, what time checking out? That's in the audience also.
I believe on that requirement, that was something that the city could regulate. We worked with all surrounding cities. All the cities in Orange County were adopting regulations at the same time, and that was with a little bit of variation, but a fairly universal standard amongst the other cities.
Well, the thing is, I think it's check in at 6 and out by, check in by 6. I lost my page, my little blue tab went off. One of the things is I thought in that law, that new law that they have in there, that I see that we picked up all the points, but I thought that it had to also lead to some permanent housing. You got the housing, there's a shelter, the emergency shelter, the transitional, and the supportive housing. Supportive housing, is that a term that you're using in place of permanent? On page 216. First paragraph, page 216. It said local planning and approval of emergency shelters and transitional and supportive housing.
Right. It's my understanding, transitional housing is much like the city has entered into partnerships with some where you're providing a housing unit for a limited stay.
I know. I'm not. I understand that. I'm talking about the supportive housing, because under that new statute, what is it, SB2, it supposedly we don't want long-term shelters and transitional, when that transitional is supposed to lead to permanent housing.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if I could, what you see in that paragraph is actually the term, the name used for the bill. It means the same thing. Transitional and supportive housing means fundamentally the same thing. That's the title for SB2. So that's what you're seeing here. There's not a differentiation, as we understand, within the laws. It relates to this particular bill.
Okay. The thing is, as you know, I'm on the Housing Policy Committee for the League of California City. The HCD persons generally come over for our policy committees when it's in Sacramento, and the assistant person that has been assigned to this precise issue was there. And that was one of the things that we had we put out there, is that, okay, you're basically mandating emergency shelters, you're mandating transitional shelters, but then you're just stuck with still people that do not have permanent housing. And so one of the things that we're looking for is how you get from emergency shelter, which is limited on the time frame of when they can check in and when they can check out, just like the arbors that we're using here in Orange County. If it's storming, raining, sleeting, or hailing, they cannot walk in through that armored door before 6 o'clock. And if it's doing the same at 6 a.m., this is at 6 p.m., and if it's doing the same at 6 a.m. that it was doing at 6 p.m., they got to get out. So we know that in most of the emergency shelters, that is what conspires. You got from this time to this time. But your transitional housing is really a temporary housing for placement. And that's what your transitional housing is all about. It's not a shelter. It's only to shelter you for a temporary time to get you into permanent housing. And I don't see the nexus here where it's going to connect, because we cannot indefinitely take an emergency shelter and transitional, and you're saying transitional and supportive mean the same. Well, then where is the permanent component to it? And that's what we asked the HCD office, because there should be a permanent component to it. And that's what the 2020 committee is working on.
That's correct. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem McCullough, SB2 is not really designed to address permanent housing. We're really only dealing with the SB2 requirements in this ordinance, and is what they require, which translates into emergency shelters, transitional and supportive housing, as they deem the term to be. Clearly, permanent housing is required, but it's not covered within the confines of SB2 at this juncture.
And so they believe that the RENA is going to take care of all the permanent housing. This is a dysfunctioning ordinance, as they always print and send down to us for us to implement. Because they're just trying to show that they're doing something that they're really not doing.
It's really the state's desire that the city do this, and of course the other issue is one which Of course, as you are aware, and those who are involved in this effort, clearly there's a need for permanent housing, but it's not being addressed in...
And that's why I complained when she came before us, and that's why she gave me her card and said she would work with me. But she's not working with me to get permanent housing, so we don't have to do this, and she's not getting it changed. But I'm going to still keep complaining until we have something that makes sense, because this does not make sense. Thank you.
Are we through?
Yes.
That brings us to discussion action items.
We
had
have
to
to
had to
vote
vote.
on it.
Yeah,
we have
we
to
vote-
vote to put it in place, so the state
She
won't come
uncapped
down
it.
and take some more money.
The following matters are the City Council consideration discussion item. Members of the public may have the opportunity to address these items if they wish. Please complete the request to speak form and pass it to Deborah Rose. Madam Clerk.
Agenda Item 18, the Lake Forest Budget Adoption. Agenda Item A, Adoption, 18A, Adoption of Fiscal Year 2013-14 Operating Budget submitted by Director of Finance, City Treasurer.
Mr. Members of the City Council, I will defer to Mr. Neves in just a moment in order to provide you with a brief overview of what these documents are doing. Fundamentally, staff has organized them in such a fashion to where we'll give you a short presentation that covers all of them. Our recommendation is that you act on them all after you've asked any questions or members of the public have. And if you choose to move them all at one time, that's fine. If you decide to approve them, consider them sequentially, that's fine as well. We organize them in this fashion so the council could do it either way. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to defer to Mr. Neves to provide an overview of this item.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'll just do a brief overview of the budgets that we have before you, the three different budgets, the city's operating budget, actually two budgets, the city's operating budget and the capital improvement projects programs budget. Tonight's recommended action is to adopt three different resolutions of the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, adopting one, the operating budget of the City of Lake Forest, two, the two-year capital improvement program budget, and three, we are asking you to be amending the fiscal year 2012-2013 operating budget, and I'll walk through these one at a time. The city's proposed operating budget, the entire operating budget consists of revenues of roughly $53.7 million, the operating expenditures of roughly $39 million even, and net transfers out of about $12.3 million. Available operating fund balances at June 30th, 2004 are estimated to be about $22.3 million. Within that operating budget, we have the proposed general fund budget, which consists of revenues of $35.9 million and expenditures of $35 million. That will give the city roughly just a little under $900,000 to put away in fund balance for fiscal year 13-14. And the transfers out are roughly about $250,000. That consists of the difference between what is being transferred into the general fund and what's being transferred out. Being transferred out is $521,000 to the capital improvement program per the policy. We look back 2 years. The policy was put on hold for 10-11, but we started it back up in 11-12. And in 11-12, there's about $521,000 that will be transferred into the CIP fund for future projects. The proposed two-year, the second reso is the two-year capital improvement program. The proposed two-year capital improvement program consists of expenditures of $35.7 million in fiscal year 2013-2014. Of course, the biggest portion of that is the sports park, $33 million. And then in fiscal year 2014-2015, we have $14.2 million. And of course, the biggest part of that is the sports park. The sports park is going over both two fiscal years to be completed. And the budget, during the budget workshop held on May 14, 2013, the City Council reviewed the proposed operating and the two-year capital improvement program and had no direction at that point in time to any changes. Since then, staff is recommending a few changes based on additional new information and available at the time of the initial workshops. And some additional information has come forth during the 5-year plan during the last couple council meetings. So what I will do is start with the general fund, the changes in the general fund. We have 2 changes in the general fund. The first change is in Management Services Department. Staff is proposing a one-time increase of $83,000 in funds to pay off a retrospective deposit balance of the city's liability insurance. We did not have these numbers at the time of the budget workshop from JPIA, our insurance provider. They produced a new model and going back retrospectively. So this is the dollar amount. It's a one-time dollar amount we owe JPIA going into fiscal year 13-14, and it will be paid up on the liability side. The second request was in Police Services Department. Staff has added $17,000 at the request of the City Council for 2 new child safety programs. These programs were brought forth to you, I think, in one of the last council meetings' 5-year plan, and I'm sure the chief can enhance on those if you need further information. That's it for the city's operating budget. Those adjustments of expenditures are about $100,000. The $83,000 is just a one-time. The $17,000 on the child safety programs could be a continuing item and go forth in future years. Going to the next resolution, the 2-year capital improvement program budget. Council is asked to add $10,000 for the traffic counts along Portola Parkway, the gap closure. So we'll put that into the 2-year capital improvement projects budget. And then we have another adjustment for the street sign replacement project. We're adding $88,000 because of additional grant funds we can receive. So I think the original project was around $45,000. We're going to add another $88,000, and that will be offset by grant funds. And the only other adjustment we're making is the adjustment for the current fiscal year budget, 12-13, that we are in right now, and that's other post-employment benefits. Last year, around the same time, when we were adopting the budget, the City Council, we took an agenda item to the City Council asking them to start funding our other post-employment benefits, and the City Council at that point in time gave us direction to start up a trust with PARS and deposit $200,000. And this reduced the city's unfunded actuarial liability to roughly $242,000. Staff is recommending that council allow us to take current year fund balance, which would be $242,000, the remaining with current available fund balance, and fund the remaining, become 100% funded for our OPEB liability. If council will give direction to staff on that, Lake Forest would be one of the first cities in Orange County that would have fully funded its OPEB liability. Staff believes the recommended revisions to the budget are consistent with previous council direction provided by the council and will result in a reasonable estimate of the city's solid financial position during the next fiscal year. At this time, I'll turn the mic back over to the city manager. If he has any other questions, then we'll turn the mic back over to the city council. We can answer any questions on the operating budget and or the 2-year capital improvement projects budget.
Thank you, Mr. News. Mr. Members of the Council, we also placed the Measure M 7-year capital improvements program on with this same series of actions you would be taking this evening. The reason for that is because it simply mirrors your 2-year capital project budget and mirrors the 5-year plan that the Council has given us direction to bring back for final approval. And let me make a note here that our intention was to bring the 5-year plan this evening. We have still a number of drop-in figures that will need to come from our consultant relative to the 5-year plan. So we're going to be bringing that back to you at the next meeting. And consequently, it's not here this evening, but as council is aware, it's important for the city to understand when you adopt this, but also when you adopt your 5-year plan, you want to know what those costs are going to be over a long period. So there's some consultant work that is still being done relative to that. But that's why you have the Measure M 7-year capital improvements program here. It's a requirement under Measure M. The city needs to annually certify that you are consistent with the master plan of arterial highways in the county of Orange, and that you have a program that will, in fact, expend the money that's allocated to the city for the improvements of your streets and roads. So this item, if there's any specific questions that you might have relative to the 7-year plan, I would eventually defer it to Mr. Wheeler if you have those questions. If not, staff recommends that the council approve all of these documents, and we'd be glad to respond to any questions that you might have at this juncture.
Open it to the council. Do we have anything from the public?
We've had no requests.
Okay.
I move that we approve all.
Second.
I second that.
I would just like to, yeah, this obviously, in my opinion, is the critical thing that a city does each year, or any governmental agency, as a matter of fact. And for the city of Lake Forest, contrary to some things you hear occasionally, this is a history that's gone on since incorporation, and it's a history of very solid fiscal management. Over the years, we've seen the economic decline in the 90s. We saw the Orange County bankruptcy, and of course recently we've seen the Great Recession that affected everybody. And there have been obviously numerous challenges coming from state mandates and other things that the city has no choice in which to do. And through all those years, based upon the foundation that was laid by the original city councils and original staffs and continued on by councils and staffs, our budgets have always been balanced and easily so. Additionally, contrary to even what you see in the federal government, state government, or even the other city governments, we have 3 reserve accounts. They are all full. Through those economic times, we did not draw down reserves. We did not have any kind of panic situation, and in fact, we did not decrease services either. Through all those economic times, this city continued to move forward. And it continued to move forward aggressively on major projects through the years. The complete redesign of El Toro Road was done during the economic decline of the 90s. Now we've brought Alton Parkway and Rancho Parkway. The sports park is moving forward. All these things were done through all those changes that you all are aware of through the economy and also what the state has required. And not only that, we've done it, and we are now in a position to continue to move forward. So the budget is actually not only the most important document for a variety of reasons, it's also one that reflects very clearly how this city has been managed over the years. And I don't think there's any question that that would be a grade of A in anybody's book who truly looks at the facts and figures. Additionally, what we've done is we've now, for over 10 years, surveyed our residents. And we get this report, and we get now a running commentary. And what we have seen over the years is they have raised issues, and we've been able, due to the fiscal management that has occurred, being able to adjust to things that come up, new things the public wants to see, and new interests that arise. And that has been able to also be done due to the fact that while other cities were struggling to create a budget and struggling, and even in many cities, particularly over the last several years, had severe cuts of like 20-30% of their budget, we did not. None of that happened. We continue to move forward, and we will continue to move forward. So I'm very pleased. I know budgets are not fun, and they're kind of a pain to go through, to be honest. But it is truly my experience, over having been proud to be here for 19 budgets now, to see that kind of budget history and that kind of fiscal management in a city that started off the way this one did and adopted the contract model. So I'm certainly pleased to support this motion.
And on that, we're going forward with a balanced budget and one of the largest sports park in all of Orange County, an over 86-acre sports park. And so we have a lot to be proud of here in Lake Forest, and we are the gateway to South Orange County. So with that, call the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
You may have
Agenda item 19, consideration of providing refreshments for the public at Planning Commission and Parks and Recreation Commission meetings, submitted by City Clerk.
Yeah. Any members of the public?
Marcia Rudolph, followed by Jim Gardner.
Good evening again. I noted, or I asked the city clerk if there was a staff report, and she said, no, we just put it out. So I thought, since I've been around since the beginning of the city, I might give you about 2 minutes worth of history. When we originally became a city, the city manager that we had made sure that we had cookies and coffee and hot water for tea available for all the meetings that we had. That went on for quite a period of time, with one addition. About 2 years in, the cookies we were getting were the kind that come in a big tin, and they're kind of vanilla and hard as rocks. And I finally said to the city manager, could we try something else? And I started bringing Oreos. And, you know, we got down to the end of it, the Oreos were gone and the other cookies were still there. And at the same time, there was a national survey that found that at most business meetings, if they had Oreo cookies, the Oreo cookies were gone, whereas other cookies kind of sat there. For quite some time, I brought the cookies. I brought the Oreo cookies, and then we had a problem with some children who came to the meetings, and they were making a mess, and the city manager, to protect the building that we're in, which we lease, decided to eliminate all of the coffee, the munchies, whatever. I was pleased to see that it was coming back. I do believe that when people come to the city council meeting, I mean, they don't come here to eat. They come here for a specific reason. But a lot of people come to city council meetings from business, directly from their offices. They fought the freeway. They got here on time, and they're coming with rumbly tumblies, and it's kind of helpful if they have something to eat. Sometimes a lot of people come in here, they eat two cookies, and that's kind of their dinner till they can get home. All of this is preamble to vehement support for having all the two commissions, as well as the city council, have coffee, hot water, cookies. You might want to try Oreos.
You can bring them.
And, you know, to make sure that people have a chance to I think if they come to the meeting and they're angry and they've had a couple of cookies, they're not going to be that angry anymore. So I very strongly support what the council is looking to try and do.
Jim Gardner.
There's nothing left, Jim. She has said it all.
You know, she and I agree on something. It's going to be a
She has said it all.
Yeah, I just felt compelled to talk because I raised the issue. My name is Jim Gardner. I live in Lake Forest. Thank you, Adam, Councilman Nick, for getting it on the agenda. Because you guys are precluded from going to those meetings, you may think that there's only 2 or 3 people there. Parks and Recreation has 20 or 30 people sometimes, and Planning the other day had 50 people there. And they're not quick and dirty meetings. They've been going on lately for 2, 3. The other day, Planning went on well past 10 o'clock. So there's a lot of people showing up, and they're there for a long time. So it would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So moved. I need a second. Nick?
Of course I seconded. I meant
Okay.
I put it on the agenda. Oh, yes, I seconded it, please.
I just said so moved. There's still room for discussion.
Just a critical issue in town. Just, it's going to change the entire essence of the city. And this is something we really need to spend some time on.
Call the vote.
Don't you think?
Councilman Robinson? Yes. Aye.
Passed unanimously.
Of course, all we've done is make staff very happy on the days following city council meetings and commission meetings, because there's always plenty left. So, staff, there you go, another Benny.
Item number 20, legislative.
Agenda item 20, legislative and regulatory matters submitted by city manager.
Mr. Members of the council, the staff's provided you the information in this report. We have nothing further to add at this juncture. Be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any members of the public?
We've had no requests.
Council? There's no discussion.
Yeah. I call discussion. This is legislation. I just got back.
Come on.
Okay. Fortunately, whenever the policy committees are in Sacramento, we're very fortunate to do a lot of lobbying. Some of the people come over, some of the senators or assemblymen, or they send their staff over. Even the governor, he'll walk across the street. But we did have some main things that they're asking for some letters on, and that Senate Bill 7, we have it in here, and it's and I'm quite sure our staff can tell you that's going to do a lot of harm for cities there. You know, one thing I've learned about Sacramento is they always find a way to write these bills, even when they got a spot bill, a two-year bill, whatever. They always got some devils in their details, because they'll write this bill and they put all this fluff in it, and somewhere in there they find a way to either take our money or take our local control. So you really have to read, and these bills, I mean, there's thousands of them all, comes in all the time. So you really need somebody to help pull some of this stuff out. And this Senate Bill 7, they still beating us to death on this prevailing wage and stuff. You know, we need to make sure that we send a letter in there of opposition, with a letter of opposition. I see you got it down here, and you hit most of the ones that they hit. But something that you may have not went into is that we had a whole presentation on immigration reform, and this hasn't been finalized. If you really want to weigh in on it, you need to take and read it. I'll give it to staff so staff can make some copies, because if you want to write in on it, this is just before they go and finalize some of these things. And you may see there are a few rights that are being given to people that you don't have yourself. So that may be something of interest. There is another bill that was a really hot topic, and that was Alex Padilla out of Los Angeles, senator. And I don't see it on here. That's one that they're asking us to write in on. Some of these bills is just literally taking our money. The one that was, and I'll give Carlos a copy of the ones with what we had said, because it's too many. I mean, they broke before our sessions ended. All of us got a chance to go over to the big house and lobby your individual assemblymen and senators. Fortunately, the ones in Orange County, we don't really have to do that, because we are in touch with them, and they know we'll vote them out if they don't listen to us, which they're very open and do listen to us. But from some of the counties, they don't. But they have a bill in place that they're going to take money from us and put in to the school districts. They're already using the redevelopment money to pay back, but they're still not giving the school back the money that they had taken from them to begin with. They're getting it from us instead of them giving it back. And there's about 10, 12 bills that I would like to give to our staff that he needs to do a little homework on it and send it out in our update, because these are some that they're asking us, not just the cities to send a letter, but even individually, because they're taking money and they're taking local control. And the money that they have taken, the deadline is, and they have to pay it all back but they found a way to take from another area and get it back. So we're still not getting our money back, except for temporarily before they take it back with one of the bills. And I got the little notes on there, Carlos, and I'll give them all to you so you can work them up on your sheet. Thank you. You do a good job, because you got most of them, but there's still some ugly ones out there that I need to give you. So the good news is we got all of our money back that we fought and signed all those petitions, but they got another bill to take it all back, and some.
Item number 21.
Agenda item 21, request for appointment, League of California Cities, Association of California Cities, Orange County, and/or the Orange County City Selection Committee, submitted by City Clerk.
Has there been any?
No, there have been no new notifications.
Okay, that moves us.
City selection won't be into October, November.
City Manager,
Nothing for this evening, Mr. Mayor.
bring it back to the council. Councilman Herzog. Councilman Nick.
I just want to thank everybody, and in particular, all of you who waited all night patiently. I want to thank the staff for the excellent job they always do, led by the best city manager, Mr. Danek, our city attorney, Mr. Smith, Madam Clerk, my colleagues here at the dais. I thank you all. God bless you.
Councilman Robinson.
Nothing further.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll do my AB 1234. I attended Southern California Association of Government. They do have a grant out. We don't have our grant person aboard yet. They do have a grant out for cities. Give you that information, or you can go online and get it. I attended, what was the coach's name that retired? I know you forgot. Hagen, Coach Hagen. That was a very touching retirement. He has done so good, and people came from all around. And it was over at El Toro High School. He's been coaching for, 40 years. But he's been at El Toro for 31. Oh, boy, I'm old, but the memory's getting pretty good. And also, I attended the League of California Cities Policy Committees. They both were very good. In fact, our clerk's department going to have some more work to do. There's some bills that's going to be affecting her. And I sit on the housing, the HCD, and the administration. We got some new laws that's coming along for administration. Some will make it easier. Some's going to give you more work to do. But since we have all this IT stuff coming aboard, it should be easy. Hopefully all you men that are fathers, that you had a good Father's Day, was treated like a king, and you were able to look at the sports and pig out on junk food. You're going to have to stay off now until next Father's Day. No more junk food. And also, I had one more. I left my little sticky at home, so I have to look in my little book and see what I missed. Let me see. How many people remember to have a flag out on Flag Day, which it was that Friday? Thank you. And there's coming a big veterans thing coming up, and I'll give it to you and have it sent out. Outside of that, I think I remembered everything, and if I forgot anything, guess what? I'll give it to you next week. Have a safe next council meeting, which won't be until next month. I may not be here, I'm telling you now. This is my 53rd wedding anniversary coming up on the 25th. And every year since I have been on this council, my husband and I have never got a chance to celebrate it without being at a meeting. We celebrate it, but we're at some meeting. And this year, he has insisted that we get a few days. So if I get back, I will be here on the next meeting. But if not, I will be with my honey love. So thank you.
How come you get married when you were 5 years old?
It was just before I was born. My mother did it. I was still in the womb.
Well, I too attended the retirement of Coach Hagen from El Toro Track. He's been in 40 years as coaching and teaching here in Saddleback Valley. Outstanding statewide coach. I actually brought some, in fact, this year, a Charger boy from El Toro won the state championship in cross country, so he's brought many titles to us. On Saturday, attended closing day for Lake Forest Little League. What outstanding job Lake Forest Little League Board has done in combining the Saddleback Little League with the Lake Forest Little League. They presented the new uniforms for the All-Star team for the Lake Forest. Outstanding black and orange and green uniforms. So they did a great job in combining those two little leagues into one with the name Lake Forest, which obviously is a great plus for us because they do a great service to our youth. And on Saturday night, I attended the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Kyle Hess, Brandon Hunt, and Devin Riley. 3 new Eagle Scouts here in Lake Forest. So with that, I'd close. Wish you guys all a great week. Thank you so much.